G'day Sports by Fry fans, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Sports by Fry YouTube channel. I am back with a round 14 wrap up, a little bit later than I would have liked this week. We got a quick turnaround again with our last Thursday night game and plenty to talk about before round 15 in the AFL Fantasy world. The bye rounds are done and dusted. I'll probably do a post tomorrow talking a little bit about how my bye rounds went, but I've got a couple of big upgrades in lines that I wanted to get. Didn't make the huge jump in ranking that I wanted, but I did move up a few thousand spots, so still poised around the 15,000th mark, which isn't anywhere near where I want to be finishing, but I think I'm going to just roll the dice with a couple of my moves towards the end of the season to chance moving up in rank and maybe keep my reputation intact. There's no more blue dots on our fields, thank God, so we will be fielding a full 22 this week. Fingers crossed you aren't hit by too much carnage come team selection, and maybe you'll be fielding no rookies in a perfect scenario. So without further ado, let me dive into today's episode. Alright, starting with my team. Now, I only scored 1,800 on the weekend, which isn't the points boost I would have liked, but some of the big names are starting to perform. Jake Lloyd in my defense was good. Griffin Lowe is probably going to be in my field along with Sydney Stack as the only two rookies, both in defense, after the bye rounds. And Lowe looks like a fantasy stud to end the season. I am expecting him to drop a 50 or maybe worse any day now, but until he does so, I think you have to keep him on your field. Sicily kind of sucked for my side this weekend, and I'll talk about him. Well, I talked about him in the podcast when I did my -5. That's where Sick Dog's name was mentioned, but I think he can bounce back if he spends more time down back, obviously. Rory Laird is good. On his bye, he'll be coming back onto my side, fresh and rejuvenated, along with Brodie Smith. So the defense, I'm not too happy with, but hopefully I can save up enough money to get Whitfield in there sooner or later. I'm relatively happy with how my midfield's looking at the moment. Gaffey's 92 on Thursday night last week wasn't great, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was his worst score of the season. Can't say the same with Fife's 88. I do note that he does have a couple of blemishes every now and then, which brings his average down, and if he keeps putting more of these up, I might do something stupid like turning him into an elite premium like Josh Kelly or someone like that. Mitch Duncan on debut was great with 116. Treloar was good. Had a couple of other rookies jump their way to some solid scores, but after trades this week, I'll probably, nothing certain, be rolling with a no rookie midfield, which will be definitely nice to see. The rucks, I tell you what, it feels bloody good to have Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn as your two starting ruckmen. The duo combined for around 300 points this week. I had Max Gawn as my skipper on debut. Went with JLo's Rolls Royce tactic and was not disappointed with 130 or 129 technically. Even though Grundy went off, I can't get too greedy, and Gawn and Grundy are the only two ruckmen that you need for your fantasy team this year. Up forward, Trav Boak, Paddy Dangerfield, Jack Billings, they all got the job done. Tim Kelly was a little bit quiet, but that's okay. He's still a fantasy star. I will welcome Zeeble back into my forward line this week. Worpel had a 70 and is on thin ice, but I don't really have the funds to turn him into Dunkley or Dusty, who are probably the only other forward upgrades I need, but hopefully Zeeble can piece it together and keep playing heavy midfield minutes. So my team's looking alright. Like I said, I'll probably only have 2 rookies on my field after trades this week, and did move a little bit up in rank during the bye rounds, but hopefully I can just steamroll through the last 2 months of the fantasy season. Alright, a few injury issues to address very quickly. Poor Harley Bennell, he's not going to play again this season. I mean, there's no certainty of that happening, but he has another significant tear in his calf. Stop me if you've heard this before. It could be Harley Bennell's curtain call, out of contract at the end of the season. It's tough to see the poor bloke go down like this, so thoughts are with you, Harley. Tom Rockcliffe, another big popular fantasy name. He is rumoured to be making a return through the Sandful, so if you've stuck with Rocky through this time, I've said week and week, time and time again, to get rid of him, and if he's not playing AFL this week and is in the Sandful, I would immediately chop him. He's still worth something, so you can turn him into a decent player if you want to. A few potentially draft-relevant blokes in Lance Franklin, out for a month with a hamstring complaint, around a month anyway, and Jeremy Howe, who hurt his calf. He's expected to miss another 2 to 3 weeks. And don't forget, Nick Natanui is all but certainty to make his Eagles season debut against Hawthorn this week at the G. So if you're rocking with him in your draft leagues, might be wise to leave him on the bench for another week. I wouldn't be surprised if he played low time on ground in his first outing, but yeah, he could be a gun to close out the year, that's for sure. Let's dive into some trade tactics. Now, I'm going to talk about Dan Hannebery for a minute. Priced at 450 grand, fresh off 100. There is a lot of people in the fantasy community that are divided over which way to go with Dan Hannebery. Personally, if it gets a rookie off your field, I think it's a gamble that you don't have to take, but makes a lot of sense to do so. If you're going down from a premium, even from Sam Walsh, I probably wouldn't advise it. Going Walsh to Hannebery could net you 150 grand, which allows you to do a lot around the grounds, but there is a little bit of risk associated with Hannebery. I talked him down all pre-season, worried that he would explode and not play again at any point when he was on an AFL side, but he's gone about it the right way. Hasn't played a lot of footy this year, but spent a long time in his injury rehab, put a couple of VFL performances together, and we saw him reap the benefits against, who St Kilda have? Brisbane last week. So personally, I reckon Hannebery could average 80, 85 for the rest of the year. Hopefully he can have some other big scores and tick his price up over 600 grand, and then you can turn him into an elite midfielder. But nothing wrong with taking the Hannebery gamble. I'd advise going from a rookie to it, but probably not down from a premium to it. The other two targets this week for me are Bulldogs in the form of Jack Macrae and Caleb Daniel. Macrae, I think, could score the most fantasy points to end the season from here on out, so he's a must-have. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to get a little bit fancy if I want him in my side, and I do want him in my side. Caleb Daniel is another bloke that will hopefully by the end of the year be in the large fries and coke. Defense and forward eligible, could see him finish in top 6 in either of those groups, so he's the target that I would advise getting if you're not looking for a midfield this round. On the rookie front, there's not too many basement price blokes. Nick Hind and Joel Garner are a tick over 200 grand, and you could maybe chase them, but you're going to have to pay up for the reliable rooks like Griffin Lowe, like Oscar Baker, and even like Patrick Naish, who's priced at 250 grand, good defender, and might be a viable starter on our field if he keeps averaging in the 70s, which is definitely possible. So those guys are probably the ones in the mix. I'm sure one or two more blokes will emerge during team selection, including, who I didn't talk about on the podcast, Will Snelling. He is a 207k midfielder from the Bombers. He's been tearing it up in the twos in the Sandful and VFL level this year, so someone to keep your eye on for sure. Trading out blokes, I think it's wise, if you don't have any pressing issues around the ground, to look at moving on some of that middle tier talent. Guys in that mould could be like James Worpel up forward, for instance. Maybe he's in your midfield and you can turn him into a good midfielder. Go for it by all means. Brodie Smith down back, he's another bloke in a lot of teams still that could be that guy. So turning those guys into elite talents is a good move in my eyes. I probably would advise to keep holding your premiums, even struggling guys like Neil and Brayshaw, but with them both scoring pretty averagely, but those two in particular, if you're going to get to someone like Josh Kelly, Andrew Gaff, Mitch Duncan, I don't like paying top dollar for an elite talent, but you got to get them in your team sooner or later, right? Now that the buys are done and dusted, it's time to get rid of some of those cash cows on your bench that aren't making you any more money. Blokes like Michael Gibbons, Nick Larkey, Noah Answorth, they all fit the mould, and you might even still be rocking with a Marty Hall or Brian Myers type on your field. If that's the case, I'd make them pretty high priority to move on. Both scored under 50 this week. They're still priced in the 400 to 450 grand mark, so you can turn them up to someone in the 600 grand mark by doing another downgrade elsewhere. So I think if you don't have anything else pressing, that'd be the way to go. Waiver wire watch now. I like the looks of Cale Hooker this week. He's probably owned by about 50% of teams by the time you're watching this video, and down back he is scoring like any elite fantasy backman at the moment. He scored 3 straight tons, had 116 on the weekend. I don't think it's wise to expect triple figures from him every outing, but he could average over 85 and push it close to 90 if he keeps up this hot form. Will Hoskin-Elliott is another bloke I like up forward. He's owned in about 25% of teams, and if you need a forward addition, then he's a bloke I would covet. Dan Hannebery in draft is also a good one. He is similar to Hooker, owned in about half the leagues out there, so if you need some midfield depth, he could help you out. And in the rucks, there's not a hell of a lot, but for the last time, if Nick Natanui is still sitting there, stop watching this video, hit pause and go and get him right now. Alright, my moves before I wrap this thing up this week. I think it's time for me to roll the dice and get Dan Hannebery. I'll be turning Willem Drew into him. Probably going Noah Answorth to Patrick Naish as my other move. However, there are rumours going around that Drew is going to play. If that's the case, I might trade out Nick Larkey and get a little bit fancy, swap a few pieces around and try and get another midfield downgrade. Nothing's locked in stone, and as per usual, team selection will determine exactly which route I go down. I do like the looks of Dan Hanbury, and I think it's wise to get on him this week, and I'm probably aiming to go down that route, but if Drew plays, my hand might be forced. I might have to do something else. That's going to do it for the round 14 wrap-up. Thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you don't miss the tomorrow night's podcast after team selection. Probably do it after the Thursday night game as well, actually, and preview all of round 15. Already given you a couple of tidbits and information to follow here, but if you need a little bit more, you can check out my Dream Team Talk Cash Cows guide. I'll put that and the link to the round wrap-up in the description down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching and tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Look out for more episodes in the near future. Until next time though, peace.